Hello, focused learners. Welcome to today's Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide today. We're going to put on our physics teacher hats and explore the invisible forces literally shaping our universe. We are mastering the fundamentals of thermal energy today. So get comfortable, grab your mental notebooks, and let's decode the world around us. Let's start with a little brain teaser. Have you ever walked into your kitchen, grabbed a metal spoon, and thought, wow, that feels way colder than the wooden spoon sitting right next to it? Think about it for a second. They've been sitting in the exact same room, right? Exposed to the exact same air for hours. Physics tells us they should be the exact same temperature. So, why is our brain telling us something completely different? Well, we're going to figure that out. Here is our syllabus for today. First, the great thermal illusion. Second, temperature versus heat. Third, how thermal energy moves. Fourth, the math of heat. And finally, number 5, real-world thermal physics. All right, let's jump straight into section 1. The great thermal illusion, shattering common misconceptions. Okay, back to our spoon paradox. It's a super common myth that metals are just naturally colder than wood. But the fact is, both spoons sitting on your counter are at the exact same room temperature. No way, right? Well, here's what's actually happening. Metal is a fantastic conductor of heat. Wood, not so much. It's an insulator. So when you touch that metal spoon, it's literally pulling the thermal energy out of your warm hand incredibly fast. What your brain registers as cold is actually just rapid heat loss. Kind of mind-blowing, right? Moving on to section 2, temperature versus heat, defining the twins. Let's do a little thought experiment. Imagine you have 2 buckets. One holds a single liter of fiercely boiling water. The other holds a massive 100-liter tub of just slightly warm water. Now, the boiling water definitely has a higher temperature, right? That represents the intense speed of its particles. But that giant bucket of warm water actually contains way more total heat energy. Why? Simply because there's just so much more water in it. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that temperature and heat describe 2 very different things. Temperature is an intensive property. It measures the average kinetic energy of the particles, basically how fast they're jiggling, and we measure that in Kelvin. Heat, on the other hand, is an extensive property. It's the actual energy being transferred from one object to another because of a temperature difference. We measure that in joules. Think of temperature as the speedometer on a car and heat as the total distance traveled. You know, getting to these definitions wasn't an overnight thing. It was a centuries-long journey. Back in 1592, Galileo developed the thermoscope, and get this, it didn't even have a scale yet. Then, Daniel Gabriel Fahrenheit came along with a mercury thermometer in 1714. Anders Celsius followed in 1742 with the 100-degree scale we all know today. And finally, Lord Kelvin in the 1800s introduced the absolute temperature scale, starting at absolute zero, which is the scientific standard we use now. Let's hit section 3, how thermal energy moves, the microscopic dance. So, according to the second law of thermodynamics, heat naturally wants to move from a hotter region to a colder region until everything balances out, until it reaches thermal equilibrium. And nature basically has 3 distinct methods for pulling this off: conduction, convection, and radiation. Let's map these big 3 out side by side. First, conduction. This transfers heat through direct physical contact, like our metal spoon sitting in a hot cup of tea. It absolutely requires matter, but the material itself doesn't move around. Next is convection. This also requires matter, but it relies on the actual bulk movement of liquids or gases. Think of boiling water tumbling around in a pot. And then there's radiation. This is the wild one. This is how the sun warms the Earth. It transfers heat through electromagnetic waves, which means it requires absolutely no matter or medium at all. It just travels right through the freezing vacuum of space. Let's zoom in on convection for a second, because it really drives so much of our natural world. When a fluid, like water or air, gets heated up, its particles gain energy, expand, and become less dense. And because it's lighter, this warm fluid rises. Cooler, denser fluid then sinks down to take its place near the heat source. This creates a continuous, rolling circulation called a convection current. This microscopic dance, it's the exact same mechanism creating those amazing sea breezes you feel at the beach. Okay, section 4, the math of heat, quantifying the invisible. Don't worry, we aren't going to get too bogged down, but I have to introduce you to perhaps the most famous thermal equation out there, Q equals mc delta T. This elegant little formula is how we calculate the exact amount of heat energy needed to change the temperature of any specific substance. Let's break this down like a quick chalkboard cheat sheet. Q is the total heat energy transferred, which is measured in joules. Lowercase m is the mass of your object in kilograms. Lowercase c is specific heat capacity, which is a unique property of different materials, and we'll get into that in just a second. And delta T is simply the change in temperature. Basically, if you have a larger mass or a higher specific heat capacity, you're going to need a whole lot more energy to actually see a change in temperature. And this perfectly explains our beach example from earlier. Have you ever wondered why the sand is burning your feet, but the ocean water feels perfectly cool? It all comes down to that little kid, specific heat capacity. Water has a super high specific heat capacity, meaning it takes a massive amount of energy to raise its temperature. Sand, it has a very low specific heat capacity. So the exact same amount of sunshine causes the sand's temperature to just skyrocket. But wait, what happens when things start to actually melt or boil? Well, we use a slightly different formula, Q equals m times L, known as the latent heat formula. See, during a phase change, like a solid ice cube turning into liquid water, the temperature actually stops rising. It just pauses right at 0 degrees Celsius while it melts. All that heat energy being absorbed is literally being used up to break the structural bonds between the molecules, rather than making them jiggle faster. All right, final stretch. Section 5. Real-world thermal physics. Energy in action. These principles of temperature and heat aren't just textbook concepts. They are the hidden engine of our modern world. Meteorologists use convection and radiation patterns to forecast our weather. Engineers are constantly designing liquid coolant systems to pull heat away from roaring internal combustion engines. Spacecraft, they have to be wrapped in highly specialized insulation to protect astronauts from the blistering thermal radiation of the sun on one side and the freezing vacuum of space on the other. Even your doctor uses infrared radiation to map thermal patterns for medical diagnoses without even touching you. Before we wrap up today's explainer, let's do a rapid-fire correction of 2 really stubborn myths. Myth number 1. If you leave boiling water on the stove and crank up the burner, it gets hotter than 100 degrees Celsius. Completely false. As we just learned with latent heat, water remains firmly at 100 degrees Celsius while boiling. That extra heat energy is strictly going into changing the liquid into steam. Okay, myth number 2. When you open your front door in the winter, you're letting the cold in. Actually, scratch that. In physics, cold isn't a flowing substance at all. Cold is simply the absence of heat. Remember the second law of thermodynamics? Heat only ever flows from hotter objects to colder ones. So when you open that winter door, you aren't letting the cold in. You are literally letting the expensive heat from your house escape out into the neighborhood. I want to leave you with a quick fun fact. Absolute zero, 0 Kelvin, or negative 273.15 degrees Celsius, is theoretically the lowest possible temperature, where molecular motion practically stops. But here's the catch. It has never actually been reached. Scientists have managed to cool atoms to tiny, microscopic fractions of a degree above absolute zero, but the ultimate zero remains an untouchable limit in classical physics. Which leads me to our final thought for today. If even with our most advanced, mind-boggling technology, true absolute zero is completely impossible to achieve, just how cold can the deepest, darkest pockets of our universe really get? It's something to chew on. Keep observing, keep questioning, and keep exploring the thermal wonders of the world around you. Thanks for joining me today, and keep that curiosity burning hot.